Hello listeners and welcome to the show. This is Sam Abrika, the CEO of Nova Money, an AI financial planner designed to help you build financial freedom. There are so many crypto exchanges listing shitcoins that it's hard to know which cryptocurrencies are legit and how they even got listed in the first place. Today, we have the chance to speak to the CEO of Coinpass, who will tell us about the steps he took to become regulated by the UK Financial Conduct Authority and his process to review alternative cryptos. Hi Jeff, very happy to have you today to talk about the crypto world and what's going on.
Thank you very much for having me, mate. It's great to be here.
One of the key questions that I really wonder is what's causing this rise of the crypto? And usually when something new is happening and emerging, it comes from a problem. And we talked that the other day. There are problems in our financial system. What do you think it is?
It's a really good question, and I don't think there's one real correct answer. What I think, in my opinion, is definitely why we're seeing a rise in crypto right now is somewhere between, I think, geopolitical and also a generational shift that we're seeing. The price of living has gone up where wages have remained stagnant. New job seekers coming into the market find it far more competitive than ever to get a good qualified job, and some of them being forced in university, forced into student loans, and forced into long-term debt that they don't really see a way out of. So, the new age of crypto, the new age of investing is all digital, having global exposure on your portfolio, whether it's stocks, shares, currencies, etc. Crypto takes that a step further because now you're not locked into a single kind of fiat rail or a single kind of currency, and you can be self-sovereign with that wealth. Something that was very apparent, and I talk to a lot of old school guys all the time, whether they're gold bugs, equity guys, bond guys. The idea of being able to take, an asset off a platform and put it onto another one and still carry the same position, like the position value where they bought it and where they want to sell it, is completely foreign to them. Being able to take self-custody of your own assets is something that's very brand new, and it puts a lot of strain and worry on banks and some centralized exchanges. So I think the problem with the existing financial system and the newcomers to the space is what makes crypto so powerful, because it puts that power and control back into the user's hands and not in the bank and not in the trading platform.
What I hear is that at the start, the problem is that our current generation is screwed. We're financially squeezed between a rising cost of life, a rising inflation, a rising tuition fees. Salaries are not picking up. We need to pay more rent. When you graduate, we have higher debt to pay, higher rent, but no more income. And therefore, the battle is kind of lost in the fiat economy or the dollar economy, however you want to call it. And therefore, the millennials and the Gen Z, even worse, need to find another area where they can actually win and prosper.
Yeah, correct. And it is, just like you say, it's like a big short squeeze. We're told to think long term about our investing and about our life and career and plan these things out. But there are several jobs now that are not going to be around in 10 years. With the rising of AI, robotics, machinery, new living, and also people want to travel and go and see the world. It's quite hard to be long-term focused when there's so many short-term issues with just general living and survivability. You live in a place like London, average salary, maybe just above the national average. National average in UK is around 24,000, but your living cost in London will be 24,000 or more. So you have to then commute in. Okay, cool. So you commute into London, and that's, can be £1,000 to £4,000 investment a year that a lot of people can't expense because it's part of their normal work schedule. So they're left with 18,000 left over. They've got rent. You've got fairly decent medical.
It's just the rent can be
rent can be
a year.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've still got to live. You've still got to reward yourself, and you're expected to build a long-term portfolio from that and still travel and see your mates. And many people live paycheck to paycheck. Let's bring kind of education into it a little bit now as well. I overheard on the bus the other day someone say, "Oh, just use an overdraft. It's free money." It's actually the most expensive form of credit that there is, and you can't build any sort of credit rating by using your overdraft. So there's so many things against younger earners in this country and globally right now before we even get to the unbanked and all the other people that crypto could really benefit. Crypto is so new. and it's so fast moving and it suits their lifestyle that, why not put a big position into Bitcoin? Because of the volatility, they can make some money. Because it's a scarcity and they're going to invest the long term, they have a more trusting reliability in something like crypto or Bitcoin rather than something existing in the financial system like a bond or an ISA account, etc., which are slower long-term gains, but they kind of need the money now. They need the volatility now. They need that profit in P&L right now because they're under such a short squeeze. So it's something that has come out of necessity, and I only see it getting more popular as more people are forced to look for alternatives. And I think with all of those different things mixed in together, crypto will have a place both now and in the future as a really, really strong place to invest their capital.
I started to get really into the crypto world in 2017 when it started to be like slightly mainstream. I went to a lot of meetups, communities, and at the time, 99% of people there were like men, usually highly technical, a lot of geeks. They liked the technicality of the blockchain.
Yep.
At the time, like Bitcoin and Ethereum were like the two main currencies. There were lots of ICOs, but turns out to be scams for most of them. Who are the crypto adopters nowadays in 2021?
That's a really good question. Who are the crypto adopters? I think it's anyone with an open mind that's willing to do something brand new that goes against the grain. You don't have to be, the cyberpunk developer sitting on forums getting the insight. There is plenty of activity on Twitter, social media. That's actually good. There's a lot of good buzzy stuff out there. You need to, I think if you want to take on anything, master a skill in 10,000 hours, you need to be spending that time not just doing your own research, but learning who are the people to follow and who are the right people to listen to in this space. They could be CEOs of businesses, they can be influencers, they can be, not all YouTubers. Some are great, a lot of them are garbage. And finding out where the noise is and where the true information lies. And be able to spot it. It's a skill to learn. Due diligence is a skill that they don't teach in school. Same with financial education and critical thinking, exactly. And I think, the adopters now are the people that are balancing up risk against potential income. So they are looking at who are the backers of this project, who's involved with it. Does it smell like a shitcoin? Does it, have any real world utility? And will anyone ever adopt this? Or is it just another version of Uniswap? Is it just another version of Yearn Finance or Sushi, etc.? So, not everyone is doing shiny penny syndrome. I think it's different than the last ICO phase. The last ICO phase was absolutely mental. And the DeFi phase has had its kind of, I don't want to say peak, but there is communities formed and people are kind of putting their guard up a little bit. So the people that I talk to and see now, they're both men and women. It's not just a men's club. A lot of women get into the space that are very, very smart and that are not easily fooled and probably get sold to all the time. And I think if you get sold to all the time, you're more likely to see a good deal rather than a bad one.
Right. So DeFi, crypto, what's the attraction? Why people like it? What does it consist in? Is it a new movement? Is it a revolution?
I think it's more of an evolution more than a revolution. I think it's a revolution. That's something that you see with the Capitol Hill riots in America. That was the start of a revolution. But I think it's an evolution of money and an evolution of financial services that's leveling the playing field for everyone. And I think that's the most important thing. You want to go and invest in a certain type of fund or a certain type of income with a prop trading house or a hedge fund or something. You need to have 100K to £1 million to even get in the front door. Then you need to do all the paperwork and all the filling out and all the KYC and all that kind of stuff to prove that you know what you're doing. Whereas DeFi, for instance, you have a MetaMask wallet with some Ethereum in it or some stable tokens, you can get a yield in a couple of clicks. The UI is a lot better than it was even a year ago, but it's still got a little bit further to go. We've got gas fees to consider, and then there's rug pulls and vulnerabilities. Prime example, if you're watching this in, what are we in, August now? September, August. Poly Network was hacked for $600 million, but the funds are being returned. So I don't know whether it's on pressure or they wanted a bit of attention, but funds are being returned to that smart contract. But in terms of level playing field, everyone can access it as if you've got
that would not
£10
have
for $1 million.
in 2017.
No, 2017, it probably would have rocked the news and it would have been completely gone and no one would have cared. But I think now there's more of a statement being made around technological skill and vulnerabilities and how to fix them. They could have gone about it a different way. They definitely could have just emailed them and said we found a vulnerability, but they wanted to prove themselves and make the news. If they'd kept the money, I think it would have done a lot of damage to DeFi, as a sector of crypto and as a brand. And, I think at the moment, I said this on a different podcast a couple of weeks ago, is that the image with crypto right now is not as positive as it could be. There's still a lot of toxicity and a lot of tribalism, which I think needs to disappear, and DeFi is one of them. The more, light we can cast onto something like DeFi, the more attention that it gets and the more secure it becomes. And then you'll find bigger money and bigger institutions coming into it where everybody wins. And when everyone wins, why do we need to be tribal about it? We want to get everyone's bags nice and full while we're stacking sats in the early days. So being super positive, bringing people into it, shouting good vibes, not hacking other people's smart contracts. It's kind of like, we are a very small, tight-knit community of 90 or 100 million people right now, and we all should be in this together.
Mm-hmm. For all of our audience new to crypto, can you paint us like the picture? What's DeFi? What's going on in the crypto world, and why is it interesting?
Yeah, so I think definitely, crypto is interesting because it's outside the traditional banking system. You can, I can send you £10 of Bitcoin right now, and it's completely public. It's on the blockchain, and you can put that transaction ID, and everyone can see it. Whereas if I sent you £5 on Revolut, I would actually probably text you after and say, "Did you get that £5?" Because it just kind of disappears into a black hole, and we don't know what happens. So crypto, it's all transparent, and you can see it in real time, and that poses a threat to traditional banking because US dollars and pounds, etc., they're issued by a central bank. They probably don't know exactly how many are out there, which should scare everybody because you've got the paper version and the digital version. So is it twice the value or double inflated? We don't know.
Their economy is working very hard to try to figure out what's the amount of money.
What is actually out there? Exactly, you don't know. And then you get into the banking system, and someone like Barclays, Lloyds, whoever, they have their own ledger, and they get issued a couple of £1 billion. They're allowed to lend that out at 10 to 1. So straight away, the money supply becomes opaque because, if they've leveraged it 10 to 1, and they've leveraged it 10 to 1, how many's actually out there? Because you can still take cash out of the ATM every other day of the week. You put it into your mortgage, or it goes into a bond, or it goes into a financial instrument. There's no idea how much is out there. And you can't do that with crypto. It doesn't work that way. You can't take a bit of Bitcoin and replicate it 9 times to loan it out to people. That whole concept does not exist. So having a fixed, either finite supply or an inflating supply, it doesn't really matter. You can always see how much circulating supply there is at any one time. You can destroy tokens by sending them to an address that cannot be retrieved. Happens on Ethereum most recently. If you read up about the Ethereum news, there was a big update that happened in the last few weeks to kind of control the rate of fees that are being generated. So every day, something like, 2,000 or 200,000? That's a big number to get wrong. There's a chunk of Ethereum that's burnt every day now to stop it from inflating the supply or inflating the fees rate too high. So you can actually burn and destroy crypto, but you have to create it through a mechanism. And why that's interesting now, especially when you come to DeFi, the latest iteration of what crypto is the idea of locking your money up in a savings account for a rainy day is something that's impregnated us, very, 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 very young. You put away $10 every month, and you'll have, $120 at the end of the year. You put it in the bank, you get some interest, and that interest used to be quite good. I remember when I was young, it was like 4 or 5%. You would get an insanely good return, especially if you kept adding to it every month. Dollar cost averaging in fiat, which sounds stupid, but that used to be a thing. And now it's less than a half of a fraction of a percent. I think HSBC updated theirs to 0.01%. So in 130 years, you'll have £5.50. It's just stupid. So the idea of having your crypto, your stablecoins secured, on your own sovereignty. It's not with a bank account. It's not sitting with Barclays, Bank of England, with anyone else. It's sitting with you. And then you can choose where to place that money and get a very handsome return, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 7, or even 12% on some tokens. You can choose where to put your wealth, and you can be the ultimate beneficiary of that. And I think that's, as a basics, that's the coolest thing about DeFi, and that's the coolest thing about crypto, is that you're in control. There are good rates out there. It's a level playing field, and everyone gets the same product. There's no VIP line, for the quad billionaires getting the best product before anyone else. There's no early IPO for high net worth investors only. DeFi is for everyone that knows how to do it, knows how to use the UI. And the second that gets better, and the sooner it becomes one click, that's a really exciting time, I think, for everyone, regardless if they've ever bought a stock or a share.
Okay, so basically the financial system has failed to give like equal access to the right product to
Definitely.
everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
The current generation is screwed. And now they're creating a financial system that is fair to everybody. So
Yeah.
obviously it's more adopted by millennials, by Gen Z, but it's open to everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And I think now that, those people have kind of piled in and they've made some gains and it's very public, and obviously word travels, where can I get yield from my capital? Where can I invest it? Some of the slightly older ones in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they're seeing yield starting to disappear from traditional assets like property. Huge amount of regulation in the UK now. A lot of changing opinions on different products available to certain landlords. A lot of extra checks, a lot of extra red tape, a lot of extra cost to running a property. I used to do quite a lot of property for a few years, and I'm just about to sell my last one. Hugely illiquid, second most illiquid asset on the planet, apart from business, and it's costly to buy, costly to sell, and costly to maintain. And they're seeing returns they used to see 7 to 9%. Now they'll be lucky to get 3 or 4. In London, you'd be on capital gains only, so there's no benefit. It's actually cheaper to own a property and not rent it, because you've got wear and tear and you've got other things and insurance and all that kind of stuff. So you see these empty flats and it's like, yeah, they're holding it for long term, but they want to keep it pristine. And now they're starting to see is like, well, my yields are going down and my costs are going up. Where else is there where I can get a good exposure, a good return? And they're starting to allocate, 1%, 2%, 5% into something as simple as Bitcoin and ride it out long term, because they understand limited supply versus demand. The demand might not be there massively now, but it will be in the future. They see stuff like, El Salvador using it for legal tender, for, bigger companies putting it on their balance sheets. And they simply understand, well, they're not making any more of this thing. This might go up in the future, and I've got a better chance of making a yield on £10,000 on Bitcoin rather than sitting in my bank account, losing its buying power every single day that it sits there. And that's where some of the older gen is starting to come across the line onto crypto as well.
So I want to react to what you said. It's true that nowadays most financial assets are giving less return than they used to. For example, if you look at the dividend yields, the bond market, the real estate, most of the profit comes from the capital gain. It doesn't come anymore from the cash flow. So from a cash flow perspective, the profitability is decreasing.
In a way, yes, because you think about let's stick with property, because everyone kind of understands that. You buy a property you put £10,000 down on a $100,000 property. You get a mortgage on it, so you have to pay, the mortgage cost. You've now got insurance to consider. You've got any stamp duty you have to pay, so that's extra fees on top. You have to pay a letting agent to look after it for you, because you have to be a certified landlord in the country now under certain schemes for protections and etc. That person's going to pay a rent. You're going to pay income tax on that rent, after, et cetera, and then, at the end of it, what does that equate to? You put 10K in, and you might make 1,000, maybe a year if you're lucky, after all of your costs, depending what you charge for rent. And there's a lot of moving parts there, and that might represent maybe a 10% yield, maybe a 7% yield. But now the yield that you're getting actually buys less than it did last year. So if you make £1,000 every year for 5 years, you made 5K, but that 5K has got less buying power than when you started, because it's deflationary. So you're
it's
kind
better
of
than zero, right?
I don't know. It's always better than zero. Everything is better than zero. One is better than zero. And you know what? They're not making any more land in the UK, so it's still an island.
Yeah. Also, don't want to discourage people to
No,
invest. And
it's not a discouragement, but
instead.
it's going into it with eyes open. It's doing the math and looking at the wider effects of it. I still love property as an asset class and as an investment class, but would I do the same strategy now as I did 5 years ago? Definitely not, because the world's changed. And I think when the world changes very fast and certain regulations aren't quick, making changes to a property is A, expensive, and B, time consuming. Just to get a roof fixed might take you a month, 2 months. So how does that affect the rest of the house and the tenant and all that? You know what I mean? It's just a slow moving worm. So going into it with eyes open and doing your research,
right?
Yeah. Definitely.
What was your business in the real estate?
I had a few single lets and HMOs. So there were houses of multiple occupation where you have a single house with 5 rooms and you rent it out per room. But I pay for the the utilities, for the internet, for the gas, council tax, and it's just you come in and it's all serviced for you. And yeah, it was good. There was good cash flow there. There was a bit of capital gain. We would improve the properties, we'd do the refurbishment, all that kind of stuff. But licensing is expensive. Letting agents are expensive. You pay 12% on income to the letting agent to take care of
Wow.
everything. And then they'd still bother me about
12%
stuff.
of your cash flows were paid to agents.
Yep, pay to agents, and that's not including the move-in fee and finding. So you pay like $250 per tenant. I've got 5 tenants, so that's $750 a year I'm spending. That's if they don't move. If they move every 6 months, you might have start having a high turnover. High turnover means increased maintenance. You have to have it cleaned every single month, and then that £25,000 we put into getting that property up and ready, and let's say the £20,000 to £30,000 of cash flow per year, we're only left with maybe 5K or something like that. So the return yield looks really good and seems really attractive, but
The gross yield looks attractive.
yeah, it looks attractive, but then you
How
put
about the
your
net yield?
yeah, the net yield, exactly. Then you've got tax to consider. You've got other payments, other expenses, other all those kind of things. I think last year, what was one of the low years? One of the low years of the year, we had quite a high turnover one year, and then quite a lot of repairs one year. So I think it's like we were left with, I think 5 or 6K, net for that specific property, and then we had to do like £3,000 worth of repairs. Okay, so we made £2,000 for the whole year. It's not great considering how much time we put into it. And then it's obviously not in London, so I have to travel up there, and it's a full day. It's 2 hours in the train up and 2 hours in the train back. I had to get a new builder, so I have to go and see them. It's just all of this stuff that goes into it, all the intangibles that the people don't consider about their investment. Um, Sometimes that stuff can withdraw from a lot of that yield stuff, and people don't consider it. You think of something like on crypto now, it's digital. It can take it with me wherever I like. It's liquid. I can liquidate it here on any exchange that I want. I could send it to you. We can barter. I can loan against it. I could put it into a BlockFi account and get a yield. I could put it into Nexo and generate a loan. I can use it in any country in the world. It is a global asset. It could depreciate in value. It could appreciate in value. I could trade it. There are so many more things to do with it, and it becomes a part of your portfolio. If you're going to go 100% in crypto, I'm not a financial advisor, but you need to think carefully about that. Having a distributed portfolio across different asset classes and different tools and facilities, that's where real wealth generation is built. And I think as we start to make more inroads into crypto, and the more that crypto is used in everyday life, a lot more of those things start to become a lot more interesting. So I buy a stock and share in Tesla, and I can take that with me anywhere, and I can sell it on any other platform. That's cool. We start seeing DeFi and types of APIs tie into real world. So like, I think we talked about this on one of our calls. What if every time you go to a certain cafe, you're paid a return on every cup of coffee they pull out of their machine because you're an investor in that local business? That's something that can be achieved with DeFi, smart contracts, and IoT. Stuff that exists right now. It's just not legalized to a point where it's safe for everyone. The UI is not there yet, but the capabilities are there. And once crypto starts interfacing with real world more often, that's where it's going to be even more exciting than it is now, and even more fast paced than it is right now. We will see micro markets on a suburb level, not just the country level. And that's what I'm really waiting for. Next 5 years, I think, are going to pale in comparison to the last 12.
So it sounds like you need to know what was investing in the old world with the real estate, the old school investment, to see what actually was the net return to better appreciate the advantages of the crypto world.
Really,
and
really
how
good point.
investing in crypto can have like more liquidity, easier return, more passive investment. So,
Yeah, definitely. It just comes from education, right?
yeah. And a lot of people are very extreme in crypto and they say, I'm owning on Bitcoin, etc. Sounds like you're more in favor for a diversified approach. Like you can have assets in real estate, in stocks, in crypto. Just don't put all your eggs in one nest.
Yeah, and I think that's where, some people will disagree, like a Warren Buffett quote, is instead of having multiple baskets of eggs, have have one basket and keep a really good eye on it, because he only does stocks and shares. Doesn't mean he buys just one, but he doesn't do, a lot of real estate stuff. He'll buy real estate companies. That's how he gets his exposure. You might be only an ISA investor because of the tax benefits. And that's great because you know a lot about it. So you might do a lot of your trading inside of your ISA. I know that one of my good friends through property, he has a goal to get his SIP pension up to 1.7 million. So he trades really aggressively in his SIP pension because he knows that as he grows older, he's going to, upgrade his house, and he's going to do this and this and this and this and this. And when you get to 65, you can take part of that out And the goal is that whatever house he has at 65, he's going to take out half of his pension. It's going to zero his mortgage. And then he's going to go and get a yield with the rest of that income. So that's his plan in his SIP. And he has other plans in his property. He has other plans in his other type of investments. And that's just building a structured approach to being diversified. He only holds £500 of Bitcoin because it represents a percentage of his portfolio. As his portfolio grows, okay, cool, I need to readjust my diversification. I still want to hold 1% worth. What does that 1% have to be? So taking a, holistic approach, be a bit agnostic, look at the world for what it is. You can't ignore gold because you don't like it. You can't ignore copper and silver because they use it in absolutely everything. You should be aware of these things. And what I've found, the more people that come into crypto, the more they're educated on like the difference between money and currency. And some people don't even know that really, really simple definition. How money is
generated. How do you define money and currency?
Really, really simply, a currency, is it tangible or intangible? Is a form of money used to barter? And I'm not going to give you all the hints and all the answers because we have a really good blog post on it, so we'll share it with this podcast. But the difference between currency and money was when they stopped using stuff like gold and silver to trade because it became really heavy and it was really cumbersome. And it would be easier just to carry paper around, right? Because it's light, it can put different numbers and stuff on it. And that's where we started going down the path of the difference between money and currency. Because, we can print more of this stuff and we can stimulate buying and we can stimulate growth rather than have to peg it to, a physical asset like a gold or a silver. And that's where it became different.
And that's where money became controlled by government and central banks.
Exactly. And if you think about it this way, what's the price of gold? It's about $1,700-ish. That will buy you a really nice suit for an ounce of gold, right? Really nice suit in, say, Savile Row, £1,700, £1,800. Back in, let's say, ancient Greece, an ounce of gold would have bought you a really, really nice toga. It's held its value for a really long time. It's really good as a store of value. It's accepted as a currency or money. But
it's quite fascinating. When you see the price of gold and its real value in the economy, it remained fairly stable, fairly constant across like the decades, the centuries, the millennials.
Yeah. But what you can't do with that ounce of gold, what if you don't want to buy something with a whole ounce of gold? You can't chop it in half. Yeah. It's not really, is that the lump of gold I have exactly the same as the lump of gold that you have? No, they're a little bit different. They might weigh the same, they might look the same, but maybe mine's got a chunk of quartz stuck in it and a collector wants more for it. I don't know. So they're not
That's
exactly...
how the Roman Empire started to cheat on their currency. They started to decrease the coins, less and less silver, until it collapsed.
Because the gold was with all the soldiers that they had to pay to fight. So you go, well, we'll make a second side of currency. We'll make it with copper and we'll treat it exactly the same. Well, people aren't that stupid. They're like, well, I'm going to keep my gold one and I'll use these copper ones. And they printed so many of them, they're like, well, they're not worth anything anymore. And that was the first ever, sort of fiat currency. There's been over 600 different fiat currencies through the ages, and 99% of them have failed, one way or another. All of them have failed. Now we look at the US dollar in its current form. It's been that way for 60 years. Pound, it's been about 300 years. The average life for a fiat currency is around 50 to 60 years. So we are literally at the end of the tether for a few of these fiat currencies as they stand. And if we look at something like the US dollar, the stuff they've been printing the last 12 months, they've printed 40% of their supply in the last 2 years.
That's insane.
It's insane. And they don't know how much is out there.
Insane.
And they just want to print. And now they've got the idea of bringing in universal income where everybody gets $1,000 a month by default. Where is that money going to come from? Debt. And this is where it starts. Yeah, debt. And then this is where it gets a bit doomsday, and we won't spend too much time on this, but what is the majority of commodities and share prices and stuff quoted in globally? Dollars. So oil contracts are settled in dollars. So anyone between, like, say you want to trade a Mexican company wanting to buy oil from the Saudis, they won't go Mexican to dirham. They'll go Mexican to USD and then USD into dirham. So that's how they do their trade settlements. So everything's settled in dollars. But what happens when you start printing a huge amount of them? You start manipulating multiple markets in what that dollar can actually buy. And it's just kind of inflated. It's not real. It's all fake. And that's where it becomes really scary with how that one currency can affect so many others. And this is where I love having these kind of conversations with this kind of stuff. We've not talked about crypto for 5 minutes now on a crypto podcast, but with what crypto can do and how the old world used to operate, and we see the distance between them, that's where a lot of educated conversations come from, which is why I love this community so much. You
so
get to
let me
learn
widen
something.
the distance.
Yeah.
The
Definitely.
reason most assets are actually performing well when you look at a cash flow perspective, it's because the interest rates are going down and the governments are printing such absurd amount of money that they are flooding all countries with new money in circulation. And this is something that I discussed in a prior episode with Jessica, who was working at the US government on the program to have like stimulus package. There are very, very few people in the world, like a very handful of people who are actually controlling the economy. And these are the people at the Fed, the central bank. And they decide basically just like Caesar at the time, yeah, the interest rates are going up or down. We're going to print more. We're going to print less money.
Yeah.
And this is affecting the entire economy. If you look at the drivers behind the S&P return, the stock market, it's not really the performance. Most of the drivers of the increase is the central bank policy and the interest rate. So we live in a world where most of the economy and the outcome of your financial performance of your dollar portfolio is actually decided by the politicians, by the central bank. This is why we call
And the people who lobby them.
Yeah. And that's why we call it a centralized system.
Yeah.
And so far, this system has been very efficient at defending itself. And that's why I say that capitalism always wins. They use the political system to always keep growing. In crypto, it doesn't exist. It's not controlled by central banks, or at least not yet.
So the endpoints kind of are, I would say, controlled by central banks. A company like us, like Coinpass, we connect existing banking, so the fiat world, into the crypto world. So we are registered with the UK FCA. We have to be to operate as a business, mostly to keep our users safe and obviously to follow anti-money laundering, keep the criminals at bay. But as soon as you're into that decentralized world, it's, that's the bridge to go wherever you want, onto Ethereum, stablecoins, interest, yield, trading, whatever you want to do. And we're just, we're a gateway. And the gateways will always have some form of connection, some form of regulation, but we sit as a bridge between the old and the new. And that's where I think we can add a lot of value. My vision is to add, to basically blur the line between existing finance and crypto onto a single digital ledger. So you don't have to tell the difference. Am I doing this or am I doing that? It should be easy, it should be simple, and it should be accessible to everyone. And that's what we want to build. We want to be in 100 plus countries, 100 plus assets, and have a way to earn yield on any of those kind of cryptos in class. That's what we're setting out to build for our users. And I think that's what should be, the goal for a lot of companies out there now is how do we not move away and destroy and rewrite our past in terms of financial services, but how do we improve them and make them better? And I think the way to improve them, make it better, is to literally expose those kind of problems as they exist. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. It's not in their best interest to give up control, to be decentralized, to be
they're
opaque.
the winners of the current financial system.
Exactly. So it is going to be a lot of, tug and pull for the next few years, I feel. And we're going to have some peaks and some troughs and some innovations. And, they can't ignore the technology because the technology rocks. There's a lot of really good stuff it can do. And they are using it. Like JP Morgan have a copy of Ethereum running internally called Quorum. And they use it for reconciliations between different departments in real time. So they're all looking at the same database, basically. The use of stablecoins, that tech is now just being rebranded into central bank digital currencies, where they can see the entire money supply in a way secure and transparent. So they can see all the dollar movements between all the different wallets. Now, are those wallets going to be KYC'd or not KYC'd? That's an option. Is it going to be a permission system? So, for law enforcement have to do their job, they might have to see a little bit more data. What permissions do they have to do that, and how do they do it? Those are the kind of things they're trying to figure out now. But they came off the back of Bitcoin. They came off the back of blockchain. They came back off the back of stablecoins, and all the stuff we're doing with those techs now will kind of be available by default. Because one thing that it does do is that because they're open source, it's an open playing field. Whoever has a good idea can contribute to the community, or they could fork and then do their own thing. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it. And that's why we have 7,000 different tokens available, which is a bit too many.
Okay,
but
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Can I become controversial?
Sure. That's what the whole system is about, is being controversial.
Excellent. In the fiat world, we do understand what's the value of money. it's controlled and it's guaranteed by governments. It has like very stable known value now. In the future, companies buy it. But in the crypto world, it sounds like it's quite subjective, not to say speculative. Why is Bitcoin worth that much now? Why is Ethereum worth that much now? People are not using Bitcoin to buy their pizza anymore. Like one guy did and he regretted it.
Yeah, so why are people not using Bitcoin more? Bitcoin is probably going to end up something like a digital gold. While it can be a peer-to-peer payment system, and that was Satoshi Nakamoto's original paper, is that it's a little bit too slow for payments. I'm not going to go into the whole layer 2 Lightning Network bit. It's expensive. Well, comparatively, you move £50, yeah, it's expensive. You move 5 million, it's the same price. So it depends what you're doing with it. And that's where I think Bitcoin is going to kind of go, is I think it'll go more into a store of value kind of thing. And maybe, you can back your loans or payments or whatever with whatever your Bitcoin holdings are, or something like that. I don't know. So it's not 100% useful for immediate payments when you're standing there. You're doing something online where, I pay for something, or I pay for a good or a house, like a bulky transaction, and it doesn't have to be like standing at the counter, kind of instantaneous. It can work just fine as a payment method, and it doesn't have to be expensive. And more so if it's international, obviously, yeah, it's going to be way cheaper than any kind of banking fees you might incur. So you're buying a villa in Spain. If you've got
enough for daily life transactions.
Not for daily life ones, but I think, if I buy something on Amazon right now, I'm not really expecting it to be instantaneous. So it works just fine as a payment method. Is buying it with a fiat rail versus a crypto rail, is it cheaper for me, or is there better service to me? Well, that's for me to decide. Maybe I'm happy to pay $1 to $3 for a transaction because of what I'm buying or because of my needs. And I don't think that should be a deciding factor for absolutely everything, which I think they're the right tools for the job. Stuff like Ethereum's got far more utility than Bitcoin. I know that's going to rattle and trigger some people, but I'm more agnostic on the space and tokens than a lot of other people. I don't support tribalism or maximalism. Ethereum is being used for a multitude of different things, creating CDP loans on Maker and Compound, sitting as a base layer for other tokens to be built on top of it, like Tether and stablecoins and DeFi and projects and etc. And
they got a massive upgrade coming.
Yeah, massive upgrade coming, going from proof of work over to proof of stake, which will make it far more greener, a lot faster, more efficient. It's going to rock the mining space just a little bit, but you can't please everyone. They'll get over it, and it will increase liquidity. Being able to lock up, or not even lock up, have your tokens sitting in a liquidity pool, earning you interest every single day. That's a good deal, whether you've got £100 or 100,000, and it's going to make DeFi more accessible to more people, to mobile devices, to on-chain contracts, and then all the stuff that's being interfaced with Ethereum. So we're working with a new company called API3, part of the API3 Alliance. And basically what we're going to do is put our kind of pricing data into an API that can be consumed by any blockchain. Now, you think about it, right? Anyone that's going to go and build something now on a smart contract is like, well, I need to get a price from here, or I need an input, or I need an oracle. I need something to give me data. Now there's one API that they can get any form of data they want from over 125 different providers. Getting 125 different points of data on one API is massive. Across any blockchain, again, is massive. And now we're starting to intermesh some of these different worlds together between programming and DeFi and crypto. And we're still early. People need to remember it's not an old industry. It's not an old industry.
Ethereum is a utility coin.
Yes.
It allows to do smart contract and a lot of interesting things.
Yep.
One of the challenge though is the volatility of the price. For businesses to rely on Ethereum, they kind of need to know what's the cost of it. And when Ethereum is so volatile and can go like from up to double in the month.
And that's why they're probably not using Ethereum. They're probably using something like an algorithmic stablecoin, which is pegged to $1 or £1. So they don't have to worry about the volatility because it's pegged to $1, for instance. And those types of stablecoins that are built on top of Ethereum, they're not exposed to Ethereum's price. They're always the same price.
But still, if they want to use the Ethereum smart contract, they kind of need to pay something like indexed to the Ethereum price, be it in gas or in Ethereum.
Yeah, so they're going to
see that working.
So when it's at the moment where everything's paid, all gas is paid in Ethereum, you can't pay let's say USDC as a stablecoin, for instance. You can't pay the gas fee in USDC. That's something that obviously needs to change from a UI perspective. So having two tokens in your wallet is not really ideal. So while at the moment you want to move a load of USDC around somewhere, you're going to have some sort of Ethereum in that wallet. Now, most likely you probably would have some some Ethereum in your wallet, because that's how you probably would have bought USDC in the first place. So it's not the problem right now, but it does need to improve. I do massively agree with you there. And that's because it's sitting on top of a parent chain. USDC is not its own chain. If it was its own chain, it would be different. And I think what will happen is that whenever you do a transaction of those tokens, there'll be a background transaction that kind of just clears your wallet out and sorts it out for you. But we're not just there yet. It's still coming. But through proof of work and through proof of stake, using the faster, more greener type of algorithm to move crypto around, that will probably be in one of those kind of updates where it doesn't matter what token you have, you can use the network. And I think that's where being agnostic is really important.
Mm-hmm. Are there already big companies that said that we are going to use the Ethereum smart contract for our services?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there any big company doing that?
Good question. I don't know. I wouldn't say no, there's not. I think there definitely is. How public they are about it, who knows? But I think the real question is, are they actually using it, or is it a bit of a buzz term? At the moment, stuff built on Ethereum is usually DeFi or some sort of logistics supply chain, etc. But running a full business on it is usually the first question. Do you need a database? Yes. Does people outside your company need to access it? Yes. So what kind of data are you going to put on it? And then usually they get back to, you don't need a blockchain, or you don't need Ethereum. So someone saying we're going to go build this on Ethereum hasn't really been the big blasting headline, but there's been a lot of people experimenting with it, from airlines to hotels to oil and gas. All of them are experimenting with different blockchain technologies. Even governments on the level of doing their stable tokens and their CDBCs. There's a huge amount of experimentation, and they're all looking at it. They're all innovating on it. Even HSBC, Barclays, all those guys are looking at it. And how can they use it effectively? That's kind of the big thing right now. How can they use this technology effectively to reduce waste and to promote transparency and to get business done better? That's what the big innovation is right now. They are spending time on it. It's just not massively public.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean for you when somebody buys cryptocurrencies? Is it an investment in the asset and its utility? Is it a speculation? Is it for trading?
I think the majority of our customers, it's definitely for an investment and for trading. They're looking to increase their holdings. They're looking to accumulate over the long term. We do have some people using, say, Ethereum to then go on to like a sushi swap or a Uniswap and get some more exotic tokens that we might not support. And some of these guys are developers as well. They are going actively building on these chains and doing testing and etc. And I think at the moment we are still, like I say, we're still very early. We're 10, 12 years old. The space is not as Wild West as it used to be. I think it's definitely improved. It's got a long way to go. But it is still a speculative asset kind of area. And that sounds like a negative thing to a lot of people. Oh, it's just a speculative asset. Well, technically so is everything. Just because you buy Tesla stocks doesn't mean you're going to buy a Tesla car. Just because you buy a Nike stock, you're going to go buy a pair of Nikes. I think everything is speculative, technically, when you really strip it down to people want to make money. People want to make yield. People want to have a better lifestyle. And to do that, they work hard. They take risks and they, educate themselves, and they address those risks with speculative bets on crypto, stocks and shares, property. Property is a speculative asset. It's really speculative considering how much exposure there is. And that's where a lack of education is. Some people think property only goes up. It goes up because of a lot of other factors, like you mentioned, interest rates, like you mentioned, a lot of reasons why it goes up and a lot of reasons why it doesn't. So everything's speculative, and I think it's okay for it to be speculative. People want to be full utilitarian and use it for what it's used for, then there are a lot of people doing that too.
And let me keep being controversial.
Great.
There are a lot of shitcoins.
Yes, there are.
And I think that these shitcoins are giving such a negative image on the crypto world because it's unregulated. And you're the CEO of a blockchain company. You have to put coins on your platform. So can you explain to everybody, how do you select these coins? What are the shitcoins? And how do you run your due diligence on any crypto asset that you accept on your platform?
Sure. So, first of all, are there too many coins? Yes, they are. Are they all serving a purpose? No, they're not. About 99% of them, maybe 95, I don't know, are never going to do anything apart from just be traded and pumped. And because they can be created from software out of thin air, and you can read the source code most of the time. They are created by a team or a person in a basement on the other side of the world that you will never know or never meet. Has there been an image problem? Yes, there's been a lot of rug pulls and a lot of crap, and a lot of them promoting a very bad image, because when they do eventually rug pull, as we say, they leave a nasty message on their homepage and they're gone forever.
Yeah, we screwed you. You can't do anything about it.
You can't do anything about it. Yeah, something like that. And it's that sticky image is what we're all stuck with. Even though we're a UK business, we're registered with the FCA, we have an LEI number with the stock exchange, all of that stuff we do right, we're still in crypto. So we get the bad press just like everyone else, which is unfortunate. And, some of them have come outright and said that this token is not legit, this token is for fun, this token is to promote the technology, to educate people, to make crypto fun. And that was Dogecoin. That was Dogecoin's original purpose. You go and read the website, you go and read the creators, whole manifesto around it, is that we need an inexpensive way to get people into this stuff and make it fun. Dogs are cool. I'm going to call this one Doge token after the Doge meme. So the meme was first, the coin was second. It's just the coin kind of owns the meme now as it is. And, when it started to get listed more places and it started to become more popular and it started to become up in price, he's telling people, don't buy this. You're not supposed to be buying it with, keep your Bitcoin. Don't trade it to Doge. Just don't, it's meant to be for fun. You're supposed to send it to your friends and do wallets. And it went mental. And then you get Elon running his mouth and pumping it to the moon. And then what you find is people don't understand that you can buy $5 a Bitcoin or a fraction of a Bitcoin. It goes to 8 decimal places. And they think that's too expensive. I can't buy a Bitcoin. Whereas this thing is 12 cents or less than a cent or a fraction of a cent. As soon as it goes to 1 cent, I'll be a millionaire. So they go all in, and it's more volatile than Bitcoin, which nothing needs to be more volatile than Bitcoin. And they lose a lot of money. And again, image problem. And the ones that have been honest about it still get traded quite a lot. I mean, I think the Doge volume outstripped Bitcoin volume one day when Elon was on SNL, which is quite funny. I had a short position lined up and I missed my entry, so I didn't get to short Doge, unfortunately. But it's just one of those things. It's a speculative investment. It's a really speculative one because it's based on a meme. That should tell you everything about the coin. Some of them are called some absolutely ridiculous names that they're not for anything. Like the offshoot of Doge now, what's it called? Shiba. That's it's a clone of a coin that doesn't do anything. So why would you put your heart into it?
Traded on Binance.
Yeah, but why does the price go up? Because more people buy it, no one's selling it. Why is no one selling it? Speculation. Greed. But no one knows the token metrics behind it either. With Doge, no one knows that there's 10,000 Doge created every block. How can it possibly get to $1 if it's constantly being created faster than it can be bought? It's a very simple process. So you really have to dig down to what is this actually going to do? Who is going to buy it? And who's going to use it? Because your users are different to your investors at all times. Anyone who gets in early and buys it, they're probably not going to be developing on it or deploying a supply chain or whatever it's going to be. So you have to think, who are the people behind it? Who are the people that are going to benefit massively from this? And, is this a real token for the long term? And I think if you just go, it's really simple. Go to CoinMarketCap, look at the top 100, and then stop. Anything outside the top 100 is either got low volume, it's got low amount of support in the open network right now, might only be listed on 2 or 3 exchanges, so low liquidity. And you have to think if they've got bigger support and they've got bigger pockets and they are developing for the long term, then they will be within the top 100. So if you're taking a speculative investment outside of Bitcoin and outside of Ethereum and etc., then you can go further than the top 100, but there's a lot of junk out there, so just be careful.
I would even say there are junks in the top 100.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I haven't looked at the top 100 today, but there is stuff that pops in and out. That top 100 list can be manipulated. If you can manipulate the circulating supply, pump the price up, get the volume up, you can get within the top 100. And that top 100 list is owned by an exchange. It is owned by Binance. And sometimes they put the occasional joke coin on there. I think it was halfway during COVID, there was toilet paper token. Because toilet paper was super rare and it was the most expensive thing because it was getting bought up everywhere. So yeah, it's a little bit of fun, but that doesn't help the image much. So yeah, I think it's just be careful, do your research, look who's behind it. If you see a Twitter account that's a week old with 40,000 followers, you know it's got to be fake. I mean, it only costs like $500 to have 40,000 followers these days. But yeah, just be careful, do your research. As of anything, if money doesn't grow on trees and you have to work hard for it, why would you give it away?
Yeah. How many coins have you listed on Coinpass?
We've only listed 8 to date. I can't go through all of our due diligence process, but we look for liquidity. We look for how widely supported in the network they are, backers of the project, if it's a project token. We only support exchange tokens and utility tokens, anything that could be used as a payment. I know that's a really, it's kind of technically still utility, but anything that's a payment token or a security token. And a security token represents a stock or a share in a company. We don't list them. So we only do exchange tokens and utility. And an exchange token might be something like a Bitcoin, Litecoin, XRP. The utility tokens are like your Ethereums, Bitcoin Cash, that might be an exchange one actually, Polkadot, Dot, Stellar, XLM, which is a competitor to XRP, and also Chainlink as well. So don't have as many tokens as everyone else, definitely not. We're a little bit stricter on what we support. We are about to add a slew of new tokens. I think we're adding about another 8 in the next few months. We do all of those with pound and euro. And the next iteration of the platform is crossing all of those tokens with Bitcoin and Ethereum. So that'll give us an extra 36 markets or something like that. And then doing stablecoin variants as well. And that'll take us to over 100 markets. So we'll have something for everybody, definitely. We're looking to get to over 100 tradable assets, not just markets, but assets over the next 12 months. And that'll see us do a lot of DeFi tokens like your Uniswaps, Maker, Compound, etc. Your exchange tokens, your traditional Bitcoins, all the way down to some of the more exotic stuff. And then start to look at some supply chain type tokens like VeChain, Neo, Ontology, etc., etc. So we are going to build that list out. We know that there's an urge for it, a need for it. We also want to also ensure that we're keeping our customers safe, not by not offering things, but by offering tokens that have good liquidity. So if you own 10, 20, 100,000 worth of the token and you go to sell it and there's no market for you to sell on, that's a problem. We want to have tokens that are going to be around for a long time.
What's the liability of your company, Coinpass, regarding that, and your personal liability as the CEO and director?
Can you be a little more detailed? Like when we say liability.
Your responsibility. So, for example, I'm the CEO of Novo Money. I'm personally responsible that our company has to ensure the data protection is not allowed to have any fraud. And
Sure.
If there is any problem, well, I would be blacklisted. My company would be closed. I wouldn't be allowed to be a company director anymore in the UK.
Yeah, so we follow a very similar process. I'm a registered director with the FCA. I'm a FCA regulated individual. So there's certain company standards and regulatory standards I have to uphold. We have a data officer, compliance officer, operations, etc., and they have all their own roles. In terms of liability, etc., none of the company funds are commingled with client funds. So for any reason the company became insolvent, that's got nothing to do with our client funds. Client funds are always safe and secured. That would be returned as such. And as well, we also insure our client funds for malicious theft or loss from a provider side. So, clients are still responsible for their own accounts. So if you lose your password and your account's compromised and they have all of your KYC data and they have your mobile phone and they look like a genuine user, people have to take their own precautions, which is why a lot of people keep their crypto on ledgers and cold storage, etc. But if you do your bit, as in protect your accounts, protect your passwords, protect your 2FA, we are probably one of the safest places to trade in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Where do you hold the crypto assets for the users who don't want to have that on their own USB key?
Sure. So we have a 2-tier system. We have hot and cold. We only keep roughly 2 to 5% of assets on our hot storage, and the rest of it is cold. And I can't go into specific details for security reasons, obviously.
Okay. So you own the infrastructure.
We do.
For the cold asset storage.
Correct.
All the security around it.
Yep. It's down to biometrics access. No one has full access to it. It requires multiple signatures, so we use a multi-sig environment.
Okay, and I guess if there's a fraud, you would be personally responsible for that.
If there was a fraud, define the fraud.
Internal fraud, like all employees decide to steal all the cold assets.
No one employee can get access to all the assets. That's the point. I don't have access to all the assets.
Okay. I think something worth mentioning is most of the frauds and the crypto scam were from unregulated companies. They were from companies where if you knew a bit about due diligence, they were obvious red flag. There's no company address, there's no legislation, there's no law that regulates them, there's no name, you don't know who they are, they can kind of put like some pictures. Oh yeah, we have to be secret, blah, blah, blah. No, it's all bullshit. A legit company has to write its company name, where it's registered, who's the director, are they registered by the FCA, etc.
Yep, and usually the key one is a disclaimer at the bottom of the page. So you scroll all the way to the bottom below the footer. If that footer is, size 12 font big, it just says all rights reserved 2020 or something like that with a company name, that's a problem. If if there are several things there about, like you say, company number, place of registration, regulator they're registered with, a registration number, that's something you can go and find. You can go and look at. In terms of naming directors and stuff, that's going to be discretionary. You don't have to name the directors on the website, but if the company number's there, you can go and find the company number
easily.
So you can find it. Same as any other country that has public listing. I don't know how to do a due diligence on a company in Singapore or Australia, but I'm sure there is very similar style systems to what we have over here, like Companies House and et cetera, et cetera. So those are definite flags, and I do completely agree with you with that. There's been several that were probably easy to spot, like the mirror trading one over to South Africa. That was a very bad one. But there were a lot of red flags from the start, and people saw more greed than due diligence. That's one of the things that's missing in schools: how to do due diligence, how to do research.
Yeah. So it's very easy to do the due diligence on Coinpass, you're a legit company. However, Binance, they got recently banned from the UK in a very confusing email.
Yes, very confusing, and a bit of fugazi about it, which was kind of not really fair on the consumers.
Yeah, so they're banned, but they're not really banned. They can't offer the services, but users can still use their services.
Yeah, so there's two conflicting things here. So what they banned was a company called Binance Markets Limited, which is a UK limited company. The original plan was them to get the UK limited company, get that company regulated by the FCA, but they never bothered. They never registered on the crypto asset register list, which we've been on since about February of 2020. We started our application in February 2020. We got on the list, I think it was about March or June. I can't remember. It's been a long saga. And you can go to that, just put in FCA and crypto list into Google and you'll find it. There's a full list. And the temporary asset list has about 50 or 60 companies still on it. A lot of people are withdrawn. The people that have full registration usually have a payments EMI license, which is super expensive and only really relevant if you want to do payments. So you do like modular current account kind of stuff. We don't do that. And there are some companies on the full list, and there's a lot of companies on the temporary list. Just being on the temporary list isn't a bad thing. It means that we're registered with the FCA, and the FCA hasn't finished making up their mind. There are companies on there, so there's us on there, Revolut, WireX, a couple of banks, a couple of massive liquidity providers, Fidelity are on there, Galaxy Digital are on there. There's some huge, huge, huge names on there. And it's a good place to be, really. We're in exactly the same spot as them. But, in terms of the Binance thing, they never registered to go on that list. Ever. They started the company in early 2020. They bought another organization, which used to be called Eddie's Crowd, which was regulated for consumer credit and lending or something like that. Nothing to do with crypto. And they changed all of the company directors on it before it was regulated properly. And obviously it never went through because it's never going to pass due diligence. So it was kind of a non-starter that never happened. They did these big announcements, they did this big marketing play, and nothing happened. And so that company has never been registered to do crypto business. And it was a really good headline for the FCA to ban Binance in the UK. But you can still go to the .com, which is not based in the UK, which the FCA have no legislative reach over and no regulatory reach over. So it was a good headline to say they're cleaning shop, banning all the companies that can't do business in the UK rather than focus on the ones that can do business in the UK. And it caused a lot of confusion for a lot of people. I can still log into the .com, I can still do this, are my funds safe? And it was a whole hoorah. Then you had all the banks jumping on board that were not even writing their own PR for it. They were just saying, go and Google Binance FCA. It's not something you want from your bank. They had their payment processors starting to close them down. So Clear Junction, based in Gibraltar, I believe, stopped payments in and out, but not for every user. So what's up with that? Some users can use it and some can't. And there was just this big, ever imploding kind of story base that did not much except for confuse everyone and yet cast more shade, both on Binance, the industry, and all the users in the UK. We saw a big increase in user base, whether it's from fear or people had heard about us before or they just wanted to use a UK company to on-ramp with. People are still sending their assets to Binance if they really want to. But as we increase our platform and our offerings and tokens, people are finding, a couple of extra basis points isn't much, considering that it's a UK company, they're registered with the FCA, they have direct banking connections, and as soon as I get a support email, it's answered straight away. People are finding the reason to select a different company over another. And people are finding a good reason why keeping their funds safe and inside of a country is more beneficial than sending them overseas. And hopefully there will be more UK exchanges that can take up that kind of load instead of people having to send them to the United States, to Cayman, to Singapore, etc.
Good. And my last question, how do you see the crypto and the blockchain in 10 or 20 years? What do you think it can do?
What do I think it can do? I think it could do a lot of things. I think it'll be at a point where it's kind of like the internet. You don't even really know it's there. You know, back in the day for using ADSL modem, you were in front of your PC and you were typing away, and when you finished, you turned it off. You know, someone picked up the phone in your house and it kicked you off the internet. Now we turn on our smartphones in the morning and we get all of our notifications from the night before, all queued up, ready, clean, crisp, easy to use. The internet is just Wi-Fi now. Can I get a Wi-Fi connection? Not can I get on the internet? You know, the internet's just a protocol that sits in the background. And that's what blockchain will be. We'll have a whole set of systems, applications, digital IDs, our healthcare, our insurance, our net worth, all of that kind of stuff tracked in real time in a secure way where we can be a local anywhere on the planet. And that's what I think blockchain will do. It will be one of those things that sits there that we're aware of, but you know, you don't have to know how to configure a modem. You don't have to know how to set up an internet connection or get on and off a Wi-Fi connection. It'll be as simple as a password.
Because for a while, cryptocurrencies and blockchain was a solution searching for a problem.
Exactly. Correct.
So, and it's often the case for a lot of technological innovation. The technology comes sometimes first, and there's no yet very good real-life application that makes use of that technology. Yeah.
And the same thing was said about motor cars. You know, how could you trust, you know, an internal combustion engine? It's just it's an uncontrolled explosion waiting to happen. And now people ride horses for sport now. Same about the internet. It's like, well, why would I want to send a really short electronic message that takes too long to send? I could just call the person on the phone, or I could send them a message. This won't catch on, you know, and it replaces, how often does your phone ring now over getting a WhatsApp message? How many regular analog texts do we get now over a WhatsApp message? I don't trust any text that I get anymore because there's so much junk. And that's an evolution of a technology. That's an evolution of a protocol. You know, we still have voice networks, we still have texting networks, but they're replaced with voice over IP. They're replaced with HTTPS. They're replaced with encryption. And those kind of things will be replaced in some way or another with some sort of blockchain in the background that just simply works.
Sounds good. Jeff, if people want to learn more about crypto, DeFi, and what you're doing, where can they find you?
So definitely find me on Twitter, Jeff_Coinpass. I'm becoming more active on there. I was very hesitant at first. Or on LinkedIn, just find our company page and you'll find me connected on there. It's Jeff Hancock, CEO of Coinpass. Ever have any question, you want to reach out, chat, something about an article we might have written, please always reach out. I'm always eager to engage with our various communities.
Awesome. And we'll add all the links in the description of this episode.
Thank you for having me, Sam. It's been a really good day. Obviously good to chat, and we should do another one of these in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff, for spreading financial education. I think it's something that people didn't learn at university, but they really need to understand the skills they require to take control of their finances. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening. I hope you found this episode enjoyable, inspiring, and educational. In this era of instant gratification, it is more important than ever to train our delayed gratification muscle. So keep learning, keep improving by 1% every day. You may not see the result right now, but this is a secret of all the successful people I've met. Please help me spread financial education by sharing this podcast with your friends and community. I would love it if you could also leave us a review. It really helps the show. Now, I would like you to forget about all the advertising that is being pushed to us on a daily basis and think about your personal financial goals. What do you really want to achieve with your money? If you have financial objectives, then check out the Nova Money app. Nova is an AI that will show you how to set financial goals and how to achieve them. A plan is only useful if you can follow it. That's why Nova will send you daily motivational messages. to give you the strength to ignore the daily temptations of spending money and stay focused on your goals. Like other budgeting apps, Nova connects all your bank accounts in one place to give you the full picture. The difference is that the Nova AI will do all the budgeting and tracking for you. The second difference is that unlike many free personal finance apps, we don't sell users data. All your data is encrypted and will remain completely private. Make sure that you're investing in your financial education. Make sure that you're building your financial freedom. And I'll speak to you in the next episode.